Ladies and gentlemen, the African Union is 20 years old today, 9 September 2022. On 9 September 1999, the heads of state and government of the member states of the Organization of African Unity, through the Third Declaration, called for the establishment of the African Union. The objective was to accelerate African integration while addressing multifaceted social, economic, and political problems on the continent. The African Union was founded in May 2001 and officially launched on 9 July 2002 in Durban, South Africa. The proposal of the leader of the Libyan Revolution, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, to consider 9 September as the day of the African Union instead of 2nd March was accepted by the heads of state and government. This 20th anniversary is a useful moment to examine how far the African Union has progressed towards meeting its core objectives. For our purpose, we will look into the linguistic component of African integration and development. Right from the inception of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, the heads of state and government of the member states established the Inter-African Bureau of Languages in Kampala, Uganda, whose main mandate was to develop a language plan of action for Africa as a blueprint of the language development program of the Pan-African Organization, and to assist member states to develop language policies. The Inter-African Bureau of Languages encountered some administrative and financial problems and eventually ceased to exist. During its existence, though, the Inter-African Bureau of Languages developed the Language Plan of Action for Africa with the collaboration of UNESCO and the Francophonie. The establishment of the Inter-African Bureau of Languages in Kampala, Uganda in the 1970s, and the creation, the existence of the African Academy of Languages today show that the African leaders were conscious about the indispensable role of African languages in Africa's development and integration. ACALAN has established vehicular cross-border language commissions and has had national language structures designated by member states to serve as institutional focal points for ACALAN and to be agents of ACALAN's language development and promotion programs at national and sub-regional levels. ACALAN also has established organs such as the Governing Board, the Assembly of Academicians, and the Scientific and Technical Committee, whose main role is to accompany, to support, to guide ACALAN in its language development and promotion program, just like all other institutions belonging to intergovernmental organizations. ACALAN has co-projects. Also, the first one is the Linguistic Atlas of Africa, whose main objective is to produce precise information about the number of African languages, their interrelation, and dialectical variations. The second project is the Pan-African Masters and the PhD program in African Languages and Applied Linguistics, whose objective is to train qualified linguists, language professionals, educators, and other practitioners to become specialists in African languages. As achievements, amongst many others, Akalan established 22 vehicular cross-border language commissions across Africa since the adoption of its statute in 2006 as the African Union's specialized language agency. Akalan had 30 national language structures designated by member states to serve as institutional focal points. Akalan harmonized the writing systems of 17 vehicular cross-border languages. Akalan established the continental management structure of the Linguistic Atlas project, including the appointment of the continental coordinator and the regional and national coordinating committees. The project is now moving to the map production stage for the ECOWAS region and the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Akalan launched the African Languages Week in Ouagadougou in July 2021, in line with its adoption by the Specialized Technical Committee, Youth, Culture and Sport in Algiers in October 2018 through Akalan's proposal. Akalan developed the Dar es Salaam Framework for Action as a collective commitment to action for African governments to ensure that Article 25 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union, previously Article 29 of the Charter of the Organization of African Unity, is implemented by promoting Kiswahili as a working language of the African Union and a language of wider communication in Africa. The heads of state and government of the member states of the African Union during the 35th Ordinary Session in February 2022 adopted the Assembly decision on the Dar es Salaam Framework for Action to make Kiswahili a working language of the African Union and a language of wider communication in Africa. Akalan launched the Pan-African Center for Interpretation and Translation, which we've seen aims to train Africans in the profession of translation and interpretation so as to enable African languages to become true working languages and languages of instruction in a multilingual context. Akalan launched the Interactive and Comprehensive Platform for African Languages, a radio station and a TV platform for African languages to reach out to rural communities in their languages and to raise the visibility of Akalan in the member states of the African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is the only continent, specifically Africa south of the Sahara, that tries to develop itself relying on other people's languages and cultures to the detriment of their own cultures, and languages, which does not work. It cannot work. It will not work. We can see the difference with those who use their languages and cultures effectively in their own development. The most challenging part of Akalan's work we try to surmount, of course, is to try to have attitude change vis-a-vis the status, capacities, capabilities, and potentials of African languages, especially the attitude of we Africans ourselves. One of the major problems affecting Akalan's work is that language matters are not part of the development discourse of most African states. In spite of the leaders' consciousness about the indispensable role of African languages in Africa's integration and development, this reflects the lack of a sense of support for African languages at the policy-making level. Most policymakers put culture and languages at the periphery of their development programs, which is detrimental to Africa's development globally, generally. I would therefore like to emphasize the point that cultural development is inevitably one of the main factors of the sustainable development of a people. The development of African languages as one of the main pillars, if not the main pillar, of culture, of African cultures, is thus an indispensable factor of African integration and development. We therefore urge our leaders, our policymakers, and all Africa to render the necessary support to Akalan's efforts on behalf of the African Union to develop and promote our values and cultures, our languages, these values and cultures of which our languages are the main component. Asanteni sana.